Hello, Herd, and welcome to another episode of the Herd Main Show. I'm your
Welcome.
Herd leader, John Wayne.
I'm,
Do
I'm,
not adjust your dials. There's nothing wrong with your TV.
maybe there's a little bit wrong with your TV. I don't know. You might want to adjust the dial just a little bit.
Welcome to another episode of
Yes.
Nerd Herder. Here on Nerd Herder, the main show where we talk about
Hmm.
Star Wars, the main thing, at least in our hearts. We love many things. We love Star Wars. That's why
Yes,
we're
we
doing
do.
a series all about loving Star Wars and talking about what we love about them. We talk about all kinds of things all the time. Just taking some time to focus on uh, discussing in an open format what we love. It's fun, it's freeing, and it also gets us back to the heart of things in the point of things. You know, in a largely negative world and
Yeah.
fan base, it's nice to spend time just loving stuff.
There's quite a bit of pointing
You
in this
know,
film.
there is a lot of pointing in this film. So we've been going film by film with Star Wars, discussing what we love about it, what would be interesting if it was different. And now we've reached the arguably fan favorite Star Wars
I
film.
think so.
We've reached a peak in the Star Wars franchise for sure. At least amongst most folks.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean anything. Whether this is the best film or not, we have our favorites. It's not one or the other. Those are two very different conversations, I think. So
Yeah.
we're not trying to rate or rank or justify these movies or anything. We're just talking about what we love.
Yeah. And I think with every film list I've ever seen, Empire Strikes Back is what we're talking about. It is in at least the top three of every single list. It
Yes.
is widely regarded as one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah, and so I feel like right off the bat we have to get that out of the way. You know, there's a lot of people that would say it's the best film, like you said. And when, you're thinking about the best things,
Yes.
I don't know what else comes to mind next to Star Wars Empire Strikes Back except the lovely taste of Expedition Roasters coffee. Oh, if you haven't heard, we are paid by Expedition Roasters for everything you buy at the link in the description below. Whether you're listening or watching this, it goes to support the show, and it goes to support you and your cabinet by filling it with good coffee. They have Star Wars coffee. They have all kinds of Disney brand coffee.
Mm-hmm.
We recommend pretty much everything because we've tried pretty much everything.
Yep.
So check out the link in the description below.
Specifically, the Voodoo Brew is a very good
Yeah,
one. We
Voodoo
love
Brew,
that
Dark
one.
Side Roast, the coconut tiki one.
Yes, the Tiki Room
They're
blends.
all lovely. Yeah,
Baumgartner, you are not.
I feel like we have to go ahead and get it out of the way
Yeah.
of talking about. There's no format usually to these. We think in our separate corners, our thinking corners, if you will,
Yep. That's mine over there.
of what do we like about these movies in prep for
Yeah.
the discussion. But largely, it's just talking. And because I think there's something pure about just really openly and uh, very not research. Like I don't want to come into any of these like
No.
this is why you should love these movies. I just want to talk about why I like them, why we like them.
Yeah.
So I feel like leaving room for that is very important.
And a lot of the time, we like different things for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like, it it's one of the best movies ever made. I will agree to that, but not for the same reason a lot of people think.
Well, yeah, I mean everybody probably has their different reasons
Yeah.
for ranking it there, but
Dude.
yeah, so we approach it differently every
Hmm.
time. We've never really spent too much time talking about why these are good movies or what makes them stand out. We just talk about things we like. But this
Yeah.
one, I feel like you can't talk about without talking about it's a good film. Like
Yeah.
it's
One of the
revolutionary in that field.
Yeah, one of the world's best sequels ever made. It's this and Terminator 2. The best sequels ever made.
Fair point.
Yep. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 as well.
Yeah, that's on there. There's a lot of really good sequels.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it I don't think that I don't know too many people that have this in high view because it's a really good movie, like it's a really well made film or anything. But I'm sure there are people like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think though you have to take time to recognize the mark this has made. I mean, Star Wars in general has been revolutionary, but I think if you had to give it to one
Yeah.
film that really solidified it,
It would be Empire.
I think it would be Empire.
Yeah. I have a friend at work who she has never seen any other Star Wars film except for Empire Strikes Back.
That's kind of sad.
It really is, and I've been trying to convince her
I
to
mean,
watch everything
it's a
else.
kind of self-contained story.
Yeah.
It can go either way of things, and it was in some ways it was supposed to do that because the next chapter, because there's always George's vision, and then there's filmmaking,
Yeah.
and those two things are usually in one way or another at odds for what eventually becomes
Hmm.
what we see. And so, yeah, even though he might have had a vision for the characters, Harrison Ford not wanting to come back kind of does change things. So you have to kind of do things a little more ambiguous than you would like to, maybe. And
Yeah.
so there's all these weird things. And sometimes we don't talk enough about Star Wars as a real thing. We talk about the fictional universe, which is really cool and everything. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting real life sides to these films as well. And I think that's the thing that makes this so unanimous is because it's not just a good Star Wars movie, it's just a good movie. And I feel like a lot of people, like I said, rank it, in the top at least.
Hmm.
I think I would say um, this and The Last Jedi are
Yeah.
probably to me some of the best made. I know it'd probably be this, The Last Jedi and Revenge of the Sith, in
Yeah.
terms of like these are really, really, really good movies. Star Wars or not.
Yeah. I
Um,
I think I'd agree with you. I'd put it Empire, Rogue One,
uh,
Revenge of the Sith.
that's true.
Yeah. Rogue One
I'm
is a
thinking
fantastically made.
I'm thinking in the saga. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, really, really, really well done film. And so yeah, sometimes we don't really come at it from that angle.
Hmm.
But I feel like this time we have to because a lot of people, uh, that's one of the first things they say about it is
Yep.
it's just a good movie. And so it's interesting to have that as the standout. I think until Marvel came along, there weren't too many things like this where it's like, hey, there's this very nerdy, very niche thing that is like you would want to write off, but trust me, it's really good. Like when Iron Man came out, it's like that's not a comic book movie,
Yeah.
quote unquote, and not in the sense of Spawn and Blade and Spider Man of the time.
Yeah.
It was a good movie that happened to involve a
Yeah.
comic book character, although you wouldn't have known because it was very much a like. I mean, this could have been a military project. This could have been a sci-fi movie. It didn't have to be a comic book movie, and yet to a
Hmm.
lot of people, Iron Man is a comic book character.
Yeah, and I think what made it that was it's believable.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
entirely plausible that this could have happened.
right. And I think what this one benefits from is episode 4, and you watch it and you see it playing out in that is it's an introduction to the galaxy, because you're the farm boy in the real sense. You're coming at it from Luke's perspective of you're learning about the Force, you're learning the truth about the Empire, you're learning about all these things.
Yeah.
So, the film projects itself into, your wide-eyed fantasy of, oh, this is wonderful, this is new. And then you get into Empire and it's just like, no, we're not explaining anything. We're just rolling. We're
We're just
going.
going full
Yeah.
steam ahead.
So they get to work with developed characters and are probably some of the themes that stick with each of the characters the most come from this movie.
Hmm.
You get the vicious yet s- caring father figure of Darth Vader. He's not just
Yeah.
the faceless, nameless villain of Episode 4. He's got a almost sympathetic side to him, but he's still bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Like dads, you know?
right. You get, Han Solo, the bumbling scoundrel who tries to do the right thing but always messes it up. You've got the princess turned, rebel leader who knows better than everyone else, and if they would just listen to her, everything would be a little bit better.
Exactly.
And then you've got the kid who picked up a sword and thinks that that makes him a hero and doesn't know he has to learn all of these things and has to practice
Hmm.
being a good person, not just being a good swordsman. And
Yeah.
so, like, it's all of these characteristics that 30, 40 years later still stick with Han Solo, Leia, Luke Skywalker, all the
Yeah.
definitions of these characters.
And you get this fantastic, right smack dab in the middle of the movie, you get this fantasy arc to the
Mm-hmm.
story. Like, you have the Wizard and the Apprentice,
Yeah.
which is the basis for so many, like, fantasy books. I'm pretty sure that there's an entire genre written by what's his name? Oh man, what's his name? Hobb? What is that his last name? I don't
Hobbs
remember.
and Shaw, good
No,
movie.
I only remember his. You'd think with the amount of time that I spend in the fantasy section, I'd know.
There's so many books
There's
though.
so many books, but yeah,
Um,
you know what I mean.
yeah, this really expounds on the weird. This is the first journey into weird Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars because if you watch Episode 4, the Force gives you influence over people. Um, I don't believe we see levitation.
No.
I think the most that we see really is just this. I mean, it's almost what you would imagine like this. You're describing God. It's just this power over the universe, this thing that connects all things, and if you can tap into it, you have
Mm-hmm.
power too. That's kind of all we get, other than the whole "hey, I can still communicate from beyond the grave" thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, but with this one, yeah, no, you're levitating things. You are, well, I mean, that's kind of the big thing
You're learning life
of
lessons
this one.
from a puppet,
Yeah, yeah.
like
Well,
like I did.
yeah. I think it's more so. It's not just that you're levitating things. It's that you're learning from a little green person. It's like it
Mm-hmm.
just gets weird very fast, and it's funny to me how nowadays, like, oh, she can't do that. Oh, she can't heal, or oh, she shouldn't be able to do this or blah, whatever.
Yeah.
And yet I'm like one movie later and y'all are okay that now the Force lifts rocks. Like, it's just it's always been silly.
Yes.
But
It's always been ridiculous. It's always been nonsense.
yeah, and so I love that little pocket within this
Mm-hmm.
very um gritty and very personal narrative. It's this rebellion, but it's also this hero's struggle.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually becomes a familial struggle, when he learns that Vader is his father. But
Yeah.
before that, it's at least this I have to defeat Vader. There's this weird expounding of just like, well, no, not just anybody can just roll up and shoot Darth Vader. Like they
Yeah.
literally have a scene around that where Han tries, and it's just like you could almost think that, well, why doesn't somebody just do something about Vader? Why does Luke have to do it? And this one goes further, I think, to show like, no, when you wield the Force, when you are a master, you are powerful. You are on a different level. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if the rebels destroy the Death Star and blow up a few AT-ATs. If you can't defeat Vader, if you can't defeat eventually Palpatine,
Mm-hmm.
then
Oh.
can you really do anything?
Womp womp.
Which also, yeah, we do get as the introduction of Palpatine
Yes,
as
we
well.
do.
So, which peeling back the curtain further of just like what is the Empire?
Mm-hmm.
How anyone can love the Empire when it changes movie to movie, I'll never know. At least
Yeah.
in the time,
Oh yeah. I get you.
having everything we have now, I see the appeal, I see the interest, but again, it's one of those things where it's like just a movie ago, Darth Vader was a lackey
Mm-hmm.
who accidentally survived, the final battle. Like it's one of those things where we're learning by each film, but at the same time, you also could say that it's getting ridiculous with each film.
Yes.
And so anybody that holds to, you know, film to film changes or differences or this legacy of Lucas and whatnot,
It's always been like that. It
it's
has
always
all.
been squishy and fluid. It's just
It's always been the moon.
so so yeah,
Yeah.
great film, great aspects to it.
Absolutely. And you want like an accurate, just how many hours is this? 6 hour journey through the hero's journey. Sit down and watch Star
You mean the
Wars.
original trilogy?
Yes.
Yeah,
That well,
about 7.
if you add in special features, about 10.
No, not
Be-
quite. Sadly.
6.5. Well, like, yeah, I mean, this is one of the most like succinct character arcs in
Hmm.
all of film,
Yeah.
because you can tell that George Lucas just sat down with the book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and was like, "Yep, that's it, that's it," and then puts it in a movie.
Hmm.
And that's not a bad thing. It's a fantastic thing. Like
Yeah.
the
Well,
fact that he took so many elements from so many different things.
yeah. Well, I think what it comes down to is it's not the end goal is not just to create a product. It's to tell a story that's
Mm-hmm.
ends in a different place than where it began.
Yes.
And I think that's part of what's worked so well with Star Wars, and obviously here where it's a little bit more dense. There's just bookends of Star Wars films that are more dense with that kind of story
Mm-hmm.
telling. And I think that's why Revenge of the Sith, Empire, and The Last Jedi are so much bigger than the rest of the parts just because they're more dense with that storytelling. It's not to say that, oh, because I said Last Jedi instead of Rise of Skywalker, it's not that. It's just that it
Yeah.
deals with different things. Rise of Skywalker is dense with other storytelling, and we'll talk about that when we actually get there and everything. So, if you can't tell, we're doing an entire series called "We
Yeah.
Love Each Film."
We're gonna
So
talk about it
I
a
don't. You're not
lot.
going to hear any. Well,
You're gonna hear some criticisms,
you're going
but
to hear
very
goofy
small ones.
criticisms, but you're
Yeah.
you're not going to hear we hate things. That's not what we do around here.
No.
Um, so
So.
I think the large appeal of Star Wars, though, is just that of, all right, we ended at four.
Hmm.
All right, now what do we need to get to five or maybe even six? What dials up? What
Yeah.
changes these characters? Like, you can tell that there's this tapestry being done. Not again, not so like when you do a sequel to the Fast and Furious movies, which one's coming out, we'll talk about those movies. Um, like you just get another movie.
Hmm.
You don't really have a moment of wow, Dom's just really grown as a character. You don't. Eh,
he has family,
I mean, he's gotten
and
thicker.
he's gotten a thick boy, and he's gotten a thicker heart and a
you,
thicker family.
Here's the thing: things changing around a character does not mean a character has changed,
No.
and things changing around a person, just to take that to a real
No.
life point.
It doesn't matter if the character has what's it where you
Family.
lose family, whether they lose their memories, like they're still
Yeah,
gonna
it
end up
doesn't
being
matter if you get a different house, if you move across town, or
yeah,
if you date somebody that looks completely different. If you don't change as a person, your life does not change.
exactly.
Like, so, and that's not a knock. I love the Fast and Furious movies. Don't get me wrong. I
I
think
know
they're
you do.
fun movies. It's just that I don't watch them for character development. That's why they're fun movies. But with these movies, why I love these movies is because they are nothing but character development. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
cool stuff around it. And so, yeah, you see that of how do we get from farm boy to reluctant hero, from
Yeah,
reluctant hero to
legend.
hero, yeah, legend, like every Star Wars film, every point of the story has been about that, measuring a distance to grow and everything. And so Luke at the end, in that final shot of Empire is different than Luke who's hopping into a snowspeeder to rush at the Empire. Like he's grown
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell that. And so yeah, the emphasis on character growth in stories
Yeah,
really really cool and interesting.
and we've talked a lot in person, not on the podcast. Believe it
We
or
do
not,
that.
we do talk outside of this podcast. We are married. About what makes a good sequel, and I think the thing that we keep coming back to is like the fact that
Yeah, I guess
you,
we have
yeah,
not like a deep long right now like a
yeah,
all in one conversation. It's been over the
it's
span.
scattered.
Every time we watch a good sequel, we're like, why is this so much better?
This is so good. Like what? How did you do
Predator
this?
2, like, how do you outdo something so original?
Busey, more Busey.
Exactly. Exactly.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, the thing that we keep like coming back to is you're taking characters that are well loved. You're taking concepts that are awesome, and you are expanding on that thing.
Mhm.
And you're not just expanding on it; you're improving it.
Mhm.
You're doing your best with what you have.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Again, to use Fast and Furious as an example, just because. Well,
Please
here's the
don't.
thing. Just because they've gotten 9.5 films, right? So
Yes.
it's one of those things. They've gotten as many films as Star Wars, essentially, and so I mean, not counting like Solo, Rogue One, all blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's just
Tokyo
like
Drift.
it's as long running as Star Wars, and yet not for the same reasons. It's
Mm-hmm.
not because you can do another sequel. Like Han is coming back in the new one. Like that goes to show that there's no measure of development. Like there's no connectivity. It's just what's gonna make a good movie. And here's the
Okay,
thing: I'm gonna digest it. I'm gonna love
you're
it,
gonna love it.
but it
It
does.
doesn't make
It doesn't
sense.
make sense. It's not as bad as Transformers,
We
but it
saw
doesn't
his
make
dead
sense.
body in the movie.
We didn't see his dead body, but there was not enough time. There was
No.
not a situation where he just crawled out of that.
Okay.
And
I
you know,
I have an announcement. Solo 2 is officially going to be called Corellian Drift.
I'm
That's it.
okay with it.
Solo
I
2
am.
Corellian Drift.
I want that. I want more racing in Star Wars, man.
Rez, make the t-shirt.
Um. So yeah. So I think there we go. We've teased out
Yes.
filmmaking. We've talked about it as a film and all of that stuff. We've talked about the concepts.
Movie.
I think more than any other one, we've spent time on that, I think it was due. And arguably, if we ever circle back and get desperate for content and do another version of, let's talk about all the movies in a row. Maybe we'll actually talk succinctly about the details of each film and not just
Not
gush and
likely.
nerd about them, but That's what we do here. That's kind of our thing. We just
So
feel
this is
a
kind of the
lot
third time
on
we've
mic.
done this series
So, but all right. So for stuff, for actually like things you like
for
about it and
stuff.
everything, what are some less filmy, more story feely things for you as far as Empire?
I love that this is a fantasy movie. Just straight up. I love that so much. It's like Lord of the Rings in space. I mean, down to like someone from beyond the grave saying, "Hey, hey,
Right.
go to the Dagobah system.
Mm-hmm.
You need to find a little dude." That's my favorite part. Is
Yeah.
that it's a straight up and down fantasy movie. And I think that's been acknowledged before by people much smarter than I am. But like the last time we rewatched it, it really just hit me of, oh wow, this is like reading the Once and Future King,
Mm-hmm.
a fantasy book that I just pulled out of nowhere. I know what it is, but yeah, that's my first thing.
I think yeah, you flip the script because in the first one again, like the
It's
force, the
sci-fi.
wizard, yeah, it's kind of a sideline thing. I mean, it's the same thing of like, oh, it's an action movie, but there's a Christian in it. Like it's just that dude prays. Like Obi-Wan is the equivalent of that, where it's just like,
Yeah,
he doesn't really impact
he's a youth
anything. Is
pastor.
just a retired one, and it's just like, the weird and the religion and the fantasy don't really impact the story. They
Hmm.
impact Luke as a character, but they don't impact the story. And this one flips that and says, hey, all the important stuff, all the war, all the action, that seems like the thing. In fact, we're going to get all of the action out of the way in the first act because
Hmm.
the rest of it is a largely personal story that takes the place of all those things. So once
Yeah.
we leave Hoth, once we get done with the action, we're just on this journey with Luke, learning more about what the Force is, how to wield it, all this other stuff, and learning
Hmm.
about this weird calling he has on his life to be the
Yeah.
hero.
Down to the fact that they have a literal showdown between light and dark
Mm-hmm.
in the
Yeah.
last few minutes.
Well,
It's the Black Knight versus the White Knight.
yeah, and well, and that's the thing is they flip it from this sort of samurai thing to this almost King Arthur thing. Like you have the
Hmm.
sword, you're the one. You have to wield that. You have to lead. You have to. So you're not
Hmm.
just a soldier. You're not just a part of this battle and this war. You're on a whole different level. You've got to slay the dragon. That has nothing to do with the courts and the ruling. That has to do with just winning, doing
Hmm.
doing the heroes thing. It's just like like it's so crazy because I mean, Star Wars would be a whole different thing if you could just bomb Cloud City and kill Vader in that. And I mean, obviously innocence, but
Yeah.
like if you took normal tactics to this, like it changes the
Hmm.
whole course of the fictional universe.
Yeah. It's the why didn't they just ride the Eagles to Mordor
Yeah,
situation.
it
Like,
like because the story isn't about the dang eagles. It's
exactly.
about the hobbits, and you don't get that by just flying
Exactly.
coach.
And also, Sauron would have seen the eagles. The
Right.
whole point of the entire Lord of the Rings movies is
Well,
that they are so small and so insignificant that Sauron would not be looking for hobbits. He would be looking for like these big war.
and that's the thing is Palpatine would have just replaced Vader.
Exactly.
Like if Vader died, like the comics have shown so much more to this relationship between Vader and Palpatine that shows to him he wasn't the chosen one. It was
No.
actually more dangerous that he let him live than if he actually got rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, he would have just replaced. We'd have another Vader. The Empire would still exist. It's all of
Mm-hmm.
those things where it's like and that's what's so important about the twins having their representation is Leia has her fight, largely the rebellion, and Luke has his fight, largely the he has his part too, largely the Jedi versus the Sith and
Yeah.
everything.
Speaking Luke and Leia, so
Oh yeah,
we get the best kiss and the worst kiss in the entirety of film in this movie.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
When we went to see it
yeah.
in the orchestra, I've told this story before, but it's still very funny. When the kiss happened between Luke and Leia, everybody just went, "Ugh."
Everybody.
It was so funny.
Um, I mean, it's not that bad.
No,
I
it's
mean,
a
it
peck.
it yeah. I mean, kissing is nothing. I mean, as long as they didn't do other things, it's fine. Which I mean, as we're learning in the story so far, they did not have time for other things.
No, they
So
did not.
good thing. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
really, what we know from the comics, and I hate to reference that, but there's been just so many comics now between 4 and 5 that have built out and been awesome. It's hard for me not to mention it. But what we've kind of seen playing out in the story is this is a lovers quote unquote spat between Leia and Han.
Hmm.
They've kind of been in this tango for a while. I mean, really since episode 4. And there's many instances where there's a lot of flirtation, a lot of stuff happening.
A lot
And
of
so
shirtless woodcutting.
right. And so this is a moment of just like she's sick of him and she's just sticking it to him.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of, well, I'll show you. There's nothing with
No,
her. Like she has no interest in Luke at all. It's honestly hilarious.
it's very funny.
Um, so anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, and we have to mention, this is one of the best romances in all of Star Wars, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it really works to show how these two characters would grow an interest in each other and everything. I think so often we're left with a very much like, oh, you're physically attractive. We both have an interest in sex. Let's do something about that. Like,
Yeah.
it's treated so much as just this, of course we're gonna do it. We're both attractive and interested. Like, James Bond style versus a really budding relationship, something that stems from a genuine interest and attraction and everything, and this
Hmm.
chemistry, and it's well played to have that kind of, chemistry of just like, you like me because I push your buttons and I'm not like other guys the princess would know and all this other stuff. And,
Hmm.
it's just like you like me because I'm a princess, but I could also tell you what to do. And,
Yes.
secretly you're 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 into
He's the simp. He's the
that.
simp in the relationship, let's be
Right.
real.
So, yeah, I love the chemistry
Hmm.
with Han and Leia. One of the better romances of Star Wars. I mean,
I agree.
regardless of where the story goes, you can tell there's infatuation for each other and everything.
Yeah, and like you said, no matter where it ends up, there is always going to be, the love story of Han and Leia.
Absolutely.
And I do genuinely believe that they did love each other at one point, and still do by the time we get to the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was ever. I think they made selfish choices, but I don't think they ever
Hmm.
divorced. I don't think they ever ended things. I think it was just more of a choosing a path. I mean, you're
Yeah.
obviously still connected. I mean, I understand that that's maybe the same thing to some people, but from the way I see it, it's very much more just this. Instead of hurting ourselves by continuing to force this thing, we're just going to love at a distance,
Hmm.
and everything. I think it's very different, and taking into account the situation with Ben and everything. Like, there's all kinds of things happening in there. It's not just a him and her; it's a him and her and him situation. So,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, complicated.
I'm just imagining all the
Space
times that
relationships.
Chewie just picked them both up by the scruff of the neck and just bam right into each
Right.
other.
He was very done with their stuff a few times.
Oh yeah.
So for me, well, do you have anything else to say? Because I talked a lot. I always talk a lot.
No, go ahead.
I just want to make sure.
Hmm.
Um, so for me, for this one, it's up there with a lot of my favorites. Where a lot of the reasons I like it, I can appreciate it as a good movie, but a lot of the reasons I like it, both have to do with how it makes me feel,
Hmm.
but also like very nostalgic, personal things I can't give anyone else and tell you. I can't be like, this is why you should love it, and it's a great movie. I mean, I can point out it's a great film. I can point out that while I was never a huge fan of Luke, and I didn't really see myself in Luke in this journey. I loved the stuff with Yoda, and I love all the wisdom that he had and everything like
Hmm.
that. And again, I saw myself and loved Han because he was complicated. He wasn't exactly good. He was the kind of guy that would pull a gun and shoot and ask questions later. Like, all of these things that were far more interesting than Luke Skywalker was at the moment to me in my life.
Hmm.
So all of these things can be like, hey, here's what's on the table. Here's why you should like it. But then there's also the other stuff where it's just like,
It's just
this is
fun.
mine. And so whereas like for me, the Phantom Menace, it's a lot of memories. It's a lot of stuff. With this one, it's the same thing. So I have shared the story before. I was recently telling you about it. How my first Lego set was an MTT, multi troop transport, the droid transport from the Phantom Menace.
Hmm.
So that was my first real Lego set. And then slowly I started to get more once my mom believed I would actually build them. Because even back then they weren't they're more expensive now, but
Hmm.
they were still expensive enough that my mom was like, you gonna play with this? Are you gonna actually use this?" So I had to put it together to prove that I could handle Legos
Yeah.
as a child. Um,
And you proceeded to for the rest of your life.
yeah, still doing it. So thanks, mom. So then I got an X-wing, and I got the Naboo set that had Qui-Gon and Jar Jar. Like
Nice.
it was a lot. It was a lot more Phantom Menace stuff because that was what was out.
Hmm.
And so, but eventually I got my hands on, like I said, an X-wing. I got a snow speeder. I got the sand speeder from episode 4. I started to get stuff, but I could never find everything I wanted, obviously,
Hmm.
because it sucked growing up with in that era because everybody wanted Star Wars stuff. So kids couldn't just have what they wanted. So
Yeah.
I never got an AT-AT. That's my favorite thing in Star Wars. I love AT-ATs. I don't know why. I associate it so much with just the Battle of Hoth, which is
Hmm.
one of the most epic moments, and even more so than. And I talked about it before. I love the dogfights of Star Wars. So as a kid watching Episode 4, I loved the trench run. And even more so, I loved this multifaceted snow battle. Like there's snow, first of all. I'd never seen snow in my life, so that
That's
was
right. You were from
exotic.
Georgia.
Then there's these cool snow speeders, which for a very long time were my favorite Star Wars starship. There were these walkers. Why do they have legs? Why I don't know,
Because they're
but they look
cool.
cool.
They look like
And then
cheekies.
you got little trench warfare and everything. So it's like all these things. I'm just like, oh my god, this is the most fascinating thing I have ever seen. This is epic. And so I wanted that, and I had the snow speeder, but I never could get a hold of an AT-AT. So I did have Duplo though. So I would build AT-ATs out of Duplo, and that would be my evening routine at least once a week, because we had white linoleum in the kitchen in our trailer, and so I was like, that's snow, and then the very rainbow colored AT-ATs and all that stuff, and you could knock them over and they'd explode, and it was just like so like one of those things. Like I still the thrill of reenacting that as a child, I still get watching the Battle of Hoth and everything. So, um, whereas a lot of the film means a lot to me,
Hmm.
like for whatever, like there's a lot of meaningful character moments.
Yes.
There's a lot of moments where it's just like, wow, I identify, I see myself, I feel something with this, and then there's moments where it's just like this transports me. The same thing with the pod race in episode 1. It's this where it's just like this takes me somewhere. This like
Mahonic.
it's like nothing meaningful's happening. It's just fun.
Just, it's meaningful
It's a
to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I make it meaningful with how I feel about it, but like
Hmm.
there's nothing crazy about pod racing and snow warfare. It's just that, again, I just feel things about it. So, yeah.
Hmm.
So it that's one of those things where it's just like I can't give you that experience. I can't bring you into that little world and make you fall in love with Empire like that. Like that's just something I got,
Hmm.
so but yeah, it's one of my childhood memories there.
Yes.
So
Still, it's just I love hearing you tell that story so much.
yeah.
It's so sweet. It's so cute.
Oh my
Uh.
gosh, I don't even know where I think I got Duplo specifically for that.
Hmm.
I don't remember doing anything else with Duplo.
Hmm.
I never really cared for Duplo, but it was, I mean, because obviously Lego, tiny pieces, it would take forever to build something tall. But with Duplo, I could build like a 2 foot AT-AT stand in very easily because all of the
Yeah.
parts are so big. So it's just like, I specifically remember that.
Hmm. You did
Um,
eventually get your AT-AT though. It's not the one.
no, yeah, I have a couple of models. I have a Micro Machines. I have a popcorn bucket. I have an AT-M6 from the Last Jedi that you got me. I recently saw the new AT-AT Lego set in stores. It's just expensive. That's the only thing about it. It's the reason I haven't gotten a classic Kenner. I
Hmm.
know there's other AT-AT action figure toys out there. Um,
But
you know,
Kenner.
yeah, like that was the one I grew up. I had I had this Brian's Toys magazine that had ads for all of these Star Wars toys and all of these playsets, and I had this check mark wish list of things I wanted that I don't even can't even tell you if I've gotten any or some of those things. But I had this one freaking thing. It came with something I ordered, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'd never seen so many Star Wars toys. Like I'd seen ones I'd never heard of. They had the FX lightsabers in there, like all these things. And I'm like, oh, the
Yes.
world is bigger than just action figures and Kenner. But
I was whacked with those lightsabers.
I had that circled in there forever. It was the indoor one for episode 6, but it was the Kenner AT-AT. And so I was like, I want that. That's on my wish list forever now. And so I was just that of just like it's so hard to find either secondhand, well taken care of, fair priced ones, or just one that's new condition, but also again
Hmm.
fair priced. And then there's people that hate me when I say fair priced. I don't want to break the bank buying my childhood. Okay,
Yeah,
I
and
just don't
that's
think that's
fair.
fair. I just
Yeah. Uh,
so yeah, I've seen several that are in poor condition that I could have probably gotten for $60-$70. But if I get an AT-AT, I want it preserved. I
mhm.
want it well taken care of and everything. So it's on the wish list. So I have, yeah, it's eventually going to go with the rest of them. And I also
Yeah.
have several mini ones that have come in advent calendars as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I loved these snow speeders for a very, very long time. I up until The Force Awakens, I never really cared for the X-wing. I was
Really.
never that kid that was like that's the Star Wars ship. Like
Yeah.
it was Y wings, snow speeders, and B wings. It was always the weird ones.
I think for a lot of people, it's the character that's flying it that makes the beat.
Absolutely.
Poe Dameron
Yeah, it makes
made
a
the
difference.
X-wing.
I mean, heck, Antok Merrick, thank you Hasbro for that
Don't
Black
even get me
Series.
started.
Blonde Biggs is flying again, man.
Mustache father.
Oh gosh, I hope he's an Andor. So,
Just for you to squeal over.
yeah, it just takes caring about the person. Like Luke
Hmm.
Skywalker, meh. Biggs Darklighter,
Okay.
kind of there, but only if you
Okay.
watch the deleted scenes, right? Wedge Antilles, he's fine in the sixth one, but I mean, by and large,
Yeah.
it's all the cool ones. I mean, you could almost give the snow speeder to Luke, but really, let's be honest, it goes to it's not Wedge.
No, it's Dex.
Is it Dak? No, it's not Dex. No, you're
Wait,
thinking Dak is his
Dak.
gunner, but no, the one man, I got this on a trivia question before, but it's not Wedge. It's like a stand-in for Wedge, I think, or maybe it is Wedge. Maybe it's supposed to be Wedge because there's a history of not wedges and wedges in Star Wars. It's
Yeah,
weird.
there are quite a few.
Anyway, the one that actually takes down a couple of AT-ATs,
Yes.
the whole thing that Luke was trying to do. So anyway, but yeah,
I'm just
him.
trying to think
That
of it now. Yeah,
he's
that dude.
why snow speeders are cool, because he actually took down AT-ATs.
Yeah, I mean that that was a really really cool scene for everyone, I think. Like
So
it's one of the
different.
most nostalgic scenes in all of Star Wars.
Yeah, and well, yeah. I mean, I think it just sticks because it's just so different. It's not just flying around. It's just this weird combination of all kinds of both filmmaking techniques, stop
Hmm.
motion technique, and then just
The
interesting.
scale.
Yeah, interesting. Like it yeah it's just so
Yeah.
different, and it's kind of been replicated in places before. Obviously it gets kind of referenced in The Last Jedi. um yeah, not really as meaningful.
Hmm.
I think I don't think it's supposed to.
I agree.
I think it's meant to be a kind of
Yeah.
sad attempt, whereas at least the rebellion kind of holds their own. At
The
least
face to face showdown is
they're
what
kind of
makes
just
that scene.
yeah. Well, exactly. It's not about the speeders
Hmm.
versus they're clearly outgunned and outmatched, whereas the rebellion kind of holds their own and
Oh yeah.
everything. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the
Hmm.
epitomes of science fiction warfare, because so much does
Hmm.
kind of boil down to dogfights in Star Wars sometimes, and so to
Yeah.
get it kind of mingled in together is really interesting.
Yeah. And
Um,
like we've mentioned it, but like the scene with Yoda, the scenes with Yoda,
yeah.
fan freaking tastic. You have this weird little dude who is gonna be teaching you how to wield a saber
Right.
or something. And I think that it does such a fantastic job setting up his character for the future, which, was unintentional because I don't think he was ever supposed to show up again.
I mean, I feel like they gave him story that just happened to work in bringing him back again.
Yes.
In a very big way. You know,
Hmm.
his impact to the prequel trilogy and the Clone Wars is kind of hard to understate.
Yeah.
Um, Yoda's such a complex character, such an interesting character, and yeah, at least as far as Empire, he is um, this really wise monk stand-in kind
Yeah.
of character um, that both seems to have all the answers, but have
Yeah.
nothing really to give you at the same time. Like, you know, he talks a lot in Luke's trials about, you know, I mean, it's really up to you and
Hmm.
how much you believe in this and everything. So it's like you don't work with me and suddenly you're Jedi material, you know.
Hmm.
Like, you know, in episode 6 where, you know, Luke is like, you know, so I am a Jedi master. And it's like,
No.
okay.
No.
Sure. You know, like, you know, this is obviously a Yoda that's come to realize it's not hanging out at the temple and having the robes and having the saber that makes you Jedi. You know, it's the things you do.
Hmm.
And although Yoda does kind of stand to some of his old ways of, like, you know, you have to face Vader, um, by and large, I think he's grown so much more from where we eventually come around to see him in the days of the
Yeah.
Republic and everything.
And, this is a Yoda that has failed.
Yeah.
This is a Yoda that is in exile for a reason.
Hmm.
And I think there it people harp a little bit too much on the fact that, oh, why is he acting so weird in the first 15 minutes we see him, like, because he didn't want Luke there.
Yeah.
Like, he was trying to
Yeah.
scare him off, or he was trying to figure out, oh, okay, does this kid have what it takes? The answer is no.
Right.
um
Well, when you don't get your way and when you don't when your guard's down, you're a
mhm,
very different person. And I
mhm,
think that's the thing is if he had known that was Yoda, he wouldn't have acted like that, which means he would not have
yes,
been true to himself. Um, and that was what Yoda was trying to dig into is you know, he wanted to prove his point in that this kid's not ready, this kid can't handle it, and blah blah blah.
mhm,
And so,
because
you
he
know,
knew that Luke was coming.
right. And so he was kind of putting him through a ringer of, you know, all right, I'm not gonna wait and see. I'm gonna just go ahead and pull this out of you. I'm gonna show you're impatient, you're reckless, and you're not your sister. You know, and I love
Yeah,
that tidbit in there as well, which the books have added in terms of, you know, it adds to why he Yoda was very just exasperated the whole time of just like
come on,
you don't get it.
man. Hmm.
You just want to fight. You just want to win. You just think that this is the way things are, and that's not going to get you very
Yeah,
far.
and some of the best Merlin and Arthur dialogue in cinema in general. Like, that is why you fail, because
Hmm.
you don't believe. That is one of the most important lines in all of Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, Yoda's not a secret weapon. It you know he's a resource for sure,
Hmm.
but it's still up to Luke. It's still his choice that makes the difference. It's still what he does with the power he learns to wield and all you know all of that. And so whereas it's initially off like, hey, you need to go see Yoda. He'll give you what you need to win. It's
Hmm.
not that cut and dry. It's not that black and white. Um, you know, and I think the way it goes is the way it was always meant to go. It was never meant to be a pure solution. Go to Dagobah, learn a few things, and then eventually you'll settle this. Like, no, I
Yeah.
think it was always meant to go that way. I think it was meant for Luke to have his own experience, his own failure in that moment, to learn his path that he eventually starts walking in episode 6 that leads him to very different choices than just fighting and killing his father and everything.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, any more big moments for you before we go into comments that we took?
Um, Another thing about Yoda is that it
Mm-hmm.
led to one of the best YouTube videos of all time.
Yeah, seagulls.
Stop it now.
Yeah.
I should have worn that shirt for the podcast. Dang
Oh,
it.
that's true.
I do have a shirt that says Sable.
So,
Stop it now.
yeah. So first and foremost, our patrons, we always give them first pick of input when it comes to these sorts of things, and we also check with
Yes,
them
we do.
on types of episodes and interests they have in future content. So if you want more voice in the herd, then you can check out our patrons starting at just $1. Get you that. So Nicholas, the backyard TARDIS, aka. Said everybody always gets deep and emotional with Yoda stuff, but for me, it's about Snowspeeder versus AT-AT walkers. I just love that sequence. It's part of why I love Star Wars Trilogy Arcade by Sega and Rogue Squadron
Yes.
2. That battle on Hoth is epic. Yeah, and that's the thing is that's such an era of that's video game material that and that's part maybe
Hmm.
some of it in my mind is like I've played Star Wars on CD-ROM. I've played the Sega games, and it's just like I think that bakes it into of just like there's when it comes to Hoth, almost I almost said Lego. I mean Lego Star Wars, but almost every Star Wars media
Hmm.
game, anything, in deals with Hoth because that's just this big iconic moment. So
Oh yeah.
it's very baked in there, just as much as the big deep emotional stuff, like you said. Jim, another one of our patrons, said, while it's not a specific moment from the movie, one of my favorite memories of it is seeing it a few years back with the live orchestra. It's amazing
Yes.
and definitely enhanced my love of the film. Yes, like you mentioned, we saw this
Hmm.
live with orchestra as well, and highly recommend it.
It's
If
fantastic.
look into if your state has or if a city in your state has a local orchestra, you'd be surprised how many put this on. And it's not just Star Wars movies, Marvel movies, Jaws, anything with orchestral music they will sometimes
Hmm.
do and put on shows for, and it's usually uh, the same price as seeing it on the big screen anywhere else, but it really does do something different. I,
So emotional.
yeah, I don't, I can't explain it because it's like you're hearing that same music when you're watching it, but there's something about knowing that that's being made for you right now that I don't know. Being a musician, I can't always quantify why songs make you feel the way you do or playing
Hmm.
makes you feel the way you do, but it's very much that where it's just like I'm not hearing a recording of music, I'm hearing music. It
Hmm.
hits differently. Your brain knows it's
Yeah.
different.
That's why the live version of Psycho Killer is so different than the album version.
That's why live music in general is different and good,
Hmm.
and just as good or good in different ways than traditional album music. So
Absolutely.
worth loving all of it. Our friends over the Force Losers podcast, shout out to them.
Kevin.
When we've made recommendations of podcasts in the past, they're one of the ones we can't recommend enough. They're cool people,
Hmm.
um, mostly family friendly,
Yeah,
but always fun. Love you, Kev.
I love you, Kev.
Um, love that my headcanon is because Yoda is intent on training Leia, that when Luke shows up, he just messes with him like some teenage petulance. Also, the death gurgle of that thing Luke steps on when he's walking towards the cave. Yeah, full of sounds that are so.
Oh
Dagobah has
yeah.
so many unique sounds and everything. Like,
Hmm.
I always think of that one scene where they show like a Komodo dragon, but that's definitely not a Komodo dragon noise. And it's
Yeah.
just stuff like that where it's just like, that's not a space lizard.
We get one of the best R2 sounds. One of the
Aunt
first.
Bosk, is that you? Yeah.
Yep.
Director Binnick, uh,
Yes.
awesome dude, great art. I think he still makes t-shirts. If so, check it out. We have
Yes.
tons of his
So
droid
many.
t-shirts. He's a wonderful dude. Um,
Met him at Celebration a couple years ago.
yeah,
Fantastic.
did not meet his son and
Oh,
his wonderful Zuckus cosplay, which was one of the things on my list. But one day, next
one of
one.
these days.
So director Binnick also, and I should say these are all on Twitter
Hmm.
because Instagram doesn't love us. Wilrow Hood, and
Will Hood.
absolutely, that's
Another
become such an
memory
icon.
from Celebration.
Yeah. Well, and then injected into lore with the Camtanos and everything. Like, goodness gracious, how things have come
Fantastic.
around. Um, make Seven Up yours. I don't like Seven Up. More of a
I
mellow
like
yellow
7 Up.
person. But they said the untrained Padawan whose master is a ghost can take down an AT-AT while on foot. Man, Jedi's just got it where it counts. I don't know what to tell you.
In their hearts.
Right. Jordan on Twitter as well said, I mean, what can you say that's not already said? It's a literal masterpiece of cinema. From beginning to end, the movie's amazing. You get the continuation of Luke's journey, the great subplot of the rest of the crew, Yoda, and the twist ending. Yeah, we
Hmm.
didn't even really talk about
No.
how it revolutionized the twist in cinema and everything. And yeah, I mean, that was a bold choice story wise, but all along kind of makes sense for
Hmm.
giving meaning to the two main characters, the main villain, the main good guy, really have no reason to be intertwined the way they are until that dialogue comes along, and it's just
Yeah.
like, Makes sense.
One of the most often misquoted lines in all of cinema as well.
Yeah, right? I
It's
don't know
just
what it
a
is.
word. That's it.
I don't know what it is. Well, I mean, it's just as bad as Dark Vader. So, Joe Brennan said that anytime the Falcon doesn't work is comedy gold. Absolutely. I think this one started that
100%.
trend. I'm all the Mandalorian, said Lobot side eye to Lando, accented by the John Williams score. It's always been one of my favorite moments. I love everything on Cloud City.
It's fantastic.
There's so many little things in that, and yeah, I love the moments where you see there's this scoundrel working behind the curtains with Lando. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
puts on this front as this businessman, but obviously by now we all know better.
Yes.
Captain Antifa, interesting. John Williams' score, as in every episode, is a highlight, but the Imperial March, Darth Vader's theme, is arguably more famous than the iconic main title music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get into what is and isn't iconic and there's so many. I think it's definitely, but you can't hear either without thinking Star Wars.
Yeah.
For sure. And so, I mean, it's just another aspect of where Star Wars would not be Star Wars if it didn't sound the way it does. And that goes back to what we were talking about the live orchestra. Kieran Docherty, I don't know if it's supposed to be said that fancy, but I
It's
did,
not.
said Han's first instinct was to shoot Vader. No oh no moments. Yeah, I love, and I think this is a, around Temple of Doom or before Temple of Doom.
Around Temple of Doom.
I don't
I
know.
don't
I don't know
think
what came
it's.
first.
I think. I don't know.
I like to
I don't
think.
remember.
I like to think. Not Temple of Doom. Raiders of the Lost Ark. I
Mm-hmm.
like to think Raiders came first because I like to think that they were specifically separating Indiana from Han in that
Corellian Blue, help us out.
that scene where Indiana just pulls out his gun and just shoot like all the times we think why doesn't he just shoot the sword guy? Here we go and try, and again this is what I'm talking
Yeah.
about of like no, yeah, that doesn't work on Darth Vader. I love that moment where it's just like why don't they just shoot him? Nah, doesn't work like that.
It's happened a couple
Dude
times.
takes a saber too. In this one, he takes a saber to the arm and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
doesn't lose anything. So clearly, it's not as easy as that.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana would not fare well in Star Wars.
No, he would not.
And then our friend Jesse over at Game Infinite said, "I love how it gives us our first Star Wars ground battle. The map has become so iconic, and it's one of my favorite Star Wars locations to visit in Star Wars games. Absolutely, and there's nothing like that thrill, no matter
Mm-hmm.
which version you're playing. In Battlefront, jumping into Hoth. Um, I mean, it's just of the locations that make you feel Star Wars. It's right up there, I think, with like Tatooine and everything, where it's just like no, this is special.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate all of the input. One of our last one was Ro from Twitter as well, who said, "Where do I start?" Had nothing to add because there's so much to add,
So much.
and I completely understand that. So, yeah, thanks for sharing all of your input. We're obviously only on episode 5. We've got 4 more to go, and we're talking right now about circling to the spin-offs.
Yes.
So we've got a few more of these to go. More conversations to be had about why we love these Star Wars films, both in agreement with the fandom and also from our own personal perspectives. And that said, we would love to hear from you, your personal perspective on why you love these films. Not just why they're good films, but why you love them. We
Yes.
always want to spark a conversation with our conversations. So feel free to hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. We try to hit all age ranges there. Gen Z with Instagram, the middle aged with Facebook, and then whatever mob is in between on Twitter. All of them are
All
covered.
ages.
All are covered, and
Fetuses.
all are welcome. Um, yeah. So we'll be back with Return of the Jedi
Yes, we
at
will.
some point. We will be back with Fast and Furious at some point.
Yep.
I, you make it sound like such a chore.
I I love that you love these movies. I love that there's something that you
You're
enjoy about
telling you
watching
don't like
them.
family. You don't like family. You like family.
You're my family, and I love you.
I love you too. And I love those movies, so I'm
I know you
excited
do.
about talking about them. And I'm trying to figure out how we're gonna do this, how we're gonna have fun with it.
Here's the
And
thing. I will do my best not to make fun of them too much.
hey, I mean, they're not perfect movies at
Okay.
all. So I don't mind. Speak your heart and speak your
Speak
truth.
my truth.
And yeah, if you have the time, we'll probably put a call to action on social media. But if you want to let us know what your thoughts on the Fast and Furious franchise are, does it make you fast or furious? Let me know, and we'll talk about it. We'll be back with that eventually because that's getting a new edition, a ninth edition, um, this weekend. When this episode's out, it'll be
Yeah.
a new Fast
It is this weekend, isn't it?
F9
F9.
will be out.
F9 and
Um,
Fnurus.
and then, other than that, remember to check the link in the description to buy some coffee and support the show.
Mm-hmm.
We've already mentioned Patreon, but again, thank you to our patrons. And if you want to join the herd on another level and also get some behind the curtains, it's just as weird back there as it is here.
Get out
But
from behind our
the difference
curtains.
is you pay to be there. So it is welcome, and the links are again
Yeah.
also in the description.
Gonna get
So
hit with a shovel if you keep hiding behind the
right.
curtains.
We mentioned him earlier, Jesse, over at Game Infinite. Game stuff be happening, and there's so much,
So I've
so
heard.
many games to get covered, and so many
Yeah.
games to wish I have. But
Just one.
yeah, just one. But Jesse has it, and you can go check out all gaming coverage, all the news, all the current games, all the past games, and all the
Yeah.
what if games as well. Just check out GameInfinite.net for all of that, or Game Infinite on Twitter and Instagram.
Yep. Follow me on Twitter if you want to hear me scream about Breath of the Wild too.
Follow both of us. Yeah, we have very different opinions on our
We do.
personal Twitters. And so if you want more into the madness than you already are, then there you go. The only next step is starting an OnlyFans and really just making subjecting you to the weirdness. And then there you go.
It's
So,
just me, just sipping out of my dog dad mug,
yeah,
just staring into the camera with full
we're
eye
still talking
contact.
about Star Wars. But again, then you pay to be there. So, with that, without further ado, we'll be back later talking more things we love. We look forward to hearing from you, things you love. And in between, we love you.
Oh yeah, we
Except
do.
you. You know
Hey,
who you are.
Cam. No, we love Cam. Cam's a sweetie.
He's one of the ones that makes it.
He
He passes.
he passes.
He passes.
But don't tell him that. I
Yeah,
don't want to get an even bigger head than he already has.
right. We'll keep it our little secret.